Basics of Life. My name is Ken Burkey, and Lanise Hargett is here. She just walked into the studio with all of this plethora of information as the parenting and child guru. I know you don't think of yourself as a guru, but she's very passionate about helping parents and about helping child development, and yes. So she has something that's not relevant at all. She wants to talk about what happens when siblings argue, there's conflict, or yes. when a parent has a conflict with their child.
Sure.
No one has those
Never.
things. Never. It
Never.
Just doesn't happen.
No.
So we have a program, which other churches do too, but called MOPS, Mothers
yes.
of Preschoolers, and you just taught this.
Yes.
Right, and you said kind of overwhelming response.
There was an overwhelming response.
And why would you think that?
Well, what we know about having families is conflict's going to happen every single day.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable as a part of our regular life.
Right. So, and we know, so if conflict's inevitable, we know there's probably a better way to do conflict, and then there's a worse way. And exactly. We're probably pretty good at the bad way.
We are all really good because it's all reactionary. Right. Whatever you think, that's what I'm going to do right now. So
right, stress levels go up,
yep.
and kids do not have good timing when
yes.
they want to have a meltdown or when they want to have an argument, and it's not for the faint of heart.
It isn't.
Yeah.
Which I think is why it's great to talk about all the time, because if it's on your mind, you're conscious of it,
yeah.
and if you have a plan,
mm-hmm.
it definitely gives you a better chance of responding correctly, or at least a little bit better than you naturally would.
So again, this is an obvious topic, but
mm-hmm.
it's not talked about a lot.
No.
Not a lot of tools are given for this, so.
Right, so that's why we're going to talk about it just a little bit today. I just reading articles about teachers and education. What we know about children right now in the classroom is that conflict is definitely on the rise. Children are having far less success in conflict resolution, whether it's with their teacher or with their peers. And teachers are having to look at it and look at their techniques of how they're dealing with conflict. And what they're realizing is the basic tricks and tips and techniques that used to work in the past are no longer working. So
let me ask, what used to work and why don't they work anymore?
Well, for example, a timeout in the classroom or sitting on the bench at recess used to work for a child because they wanted to go play on the playground. So why is it now that teachers are putting their kids on the bench because they were acting up in class and they have to have a 10-minute timeout on the bench at recess, and no longer is it working? Used to, they would come into the classroom and that was their threat.
Right.
If you do it again, you're going to lose your lunch recess as well. And so they would straighten up, and that was a great tool for teachers. That's just a very small example.
Right.
But why is that? Why did that work for years? And now why is it that it's no longer working? What is happening in our culture that the basic tools that used to work are no longer working?
That is the question.
That is the question. And so researchers, which, I always love to look at research, researchers are looking at this and they're trying to help teachers figure out why it's not working, because if we can figure out why, then we can go and say, what are the solutions for the why?
Right.
So when they look back at research, we have to go back, of course, to how are babies being raised? What is happening in our infants?
Right. And you're passionate about this.
And I'm super passionate about early childhood development, early intervention and prevention. If we can catch our children before they go to school and teach them, for example, today we're talking about conflict. If we can figure out why they're not being successful in conflict resolution in school, maybe we can change things before they even go to school to help them be successful.
Right.
So one of the researchers, one of the studies that just happened that has come out, I think it was Harvard that did this study, they were doing a test on babies. Right now, electronics is enormous. Screen time for babies and children is definitely at an all-time high.
Wow.
Our infants are spending an enormous amount of time in front of a screen. And so the researchers looked at our babies in their cribs. And right now, the big thing is how do children self-soothe and put themselves to sleep? And what they did was a lot of our babies right now have electronic toys hanging in their cribs.
Wow.
So for example, a baby would have an electronic toy that if he woke up and he was learning to kick or he was learning to grab, he could hit an electronic toy and the bells and lights and whistles would go off.
Wow.
So if a baby started crying, he could hit that And what would alarmingly come on would be music, which would startle the baby and make them immediately stop crying. So his sight, his hearing, the sound, everything is going off in his brain, which is startling him and making him stop crying.
So on the surface, that sounds like a good idea.
Sounds like a great idea.
Right, hey, the baby stopped crying.
Baby stopped crying.
Right. But obviously there's it's not a good thing.
This is not, I know for parents, we are all exhausted and parents are working super hard.
Right.
And sometimes I just want to tell parents, it's not that you're doing a bad job. It's parents, we just have to look a little deeper to say, what is the future of our children? So I don't want parents to feel guilty today. That's the last thing I want you to do. But I do want you to take a look at the style of living that you're living. How much screen time is your baby having? And this starts when they're brand new babies.
Right.
They're starting to have screen time right in their cribs.
And so how does that affect conflict resolution?
What happens with babies when we look at the very start, if you take out all forms of stimulation in a crib, and a child learns to self-soothe on their own, they learn to self-soothe without stimulation. It means they literally are inwardly learning to self-soothe.
Wow.
Without stimulation, which is why you go to Green Valley and you look at our classrooms and they're all natural. They have natural colors. It's completely natural. We do not want our children at Green Valley engaging in the room. We want our children to engage with people. We don't want them looking around at what's on the walls. What we want them looking at is the leader's face, because the leaders have something to tell them and to teach them and to connect with them, and we want them to have relationship. Which is why you go in our rooms and you say, why are the rooms so plain?
Right.
It's because we have leaders in there that are prepared with something for your children that is very intentionally going to stimulate them in a very specific direction. So going back to our babies, when you have a crib that is very natural, they're learning to self-soothe, and the baby wakes up and is crying, and the parent hears the baby crying. What happens is the parent is then forced to go in and connect with the child, which is a human-to-human connection. So going back to Green Valley, and you look at our rooms and how they're completely natural. There's natural colors. There's very little in the classroom. What our intention is, it's very intentional, is that when the children come in, our goal is that they connect with a human. They connect with their teachers. The teachers have a plan. And we've intentionally created a plan for them to connect to, but it's with a leader. It's and it's also with each other.
Right, right.
We're not going to have a lot of things on the walls or lots and tons of toys for them to, play with individually. It is going to be toys that they play with together.
What about phones? I mean, as kids get older, then they walk into a room and everybody's got a phone and
everyone has a phone. And so, at schools, of course, there's so many limitations to phones, but what you're going to see in kids now is that it's harder and harder for them to connect to each other.
Right.
Because if you see that a baby has been raised in his crib all the way up through preschool, looking at screen time, when they finally are in a classroom with children, what do they want to do? They want to watch TV.
Right.
They want to scream. They do not have the tools on how to connect to each other because they've spent time in front of their screen. So going back to our problem in public schools right now, when we look at our children in public schools and the children that are creating mayhem in the classroom, you can go back and you can look and you can say, as a child, how much screen time did that baby have from infancy to 5 years old? What was his screen time? Did he have lots of electronic devices in his crib, and then did he spend a lot of time in front of the cell phone, in front of the iPad, in front of the TV? Or for every conflict that he had that was a personal conflict, did he have a human being that was dealing with the conflict? Or was the conflict resolution for that child to actually give them an electronic device to distract him?
Wow.
It works. Electronic devices work.
Right.
They love it. It's like, you've just given me this prize, and now my bad behavior gets prized.
So short term, it's a win. Long term, it's a loss.
It's a huge loss, and you look at the ripple effect also on just how our children's brains are being developed because they're not playing, they're not using manipulatives, they're not learning to build things. You look at that, and children that are spent with tons of screen time, when you give them Legos or Lincoln Logs or even twigs and dirt,
You send them outside.
send them outside to go
You've
play.
talked about that outside playing.
Yeah, that outside play. When they've spent an enormous amount of screen time, and you say at 5 years old, not 2 years old, because you do early intervention and you've caught them early. You're changing their patterns, but you catch them at 5 to 8 years old and say, go outside and play. When they've never gone outside and played, when they go to build a house with mud and twigs, or they go to play Legos, they are always disappointed because their creation does not look like the screen.
Wow.
Because they're wired that if I create something, it needs to look like what I view every single day, as opposed to saying, I created this amazing creation out of mud and twigs. Look how cool. I've got a tunnel and a fort, and this is where they're going to live, and they're going to hunker down, and this is where the barrier is so we don't get shot by the bad guys. And they have this whole creative imagination going on in their head. But if they're spending time with video games, and they're spending time with movies and cartoons, when they go to play and it doesn't look the same, they're completely disappointed. Completely. I have a great example of a mom. Her boys love Legos, and Legos are so great for kids, and I'm so pro Legos. Legos now.
Pro Legos. Maybe we could get Legos to be like a sponsor.
Legos, yes. Legos or any type of manipulative that helps kids create are wonderful. Even that can become a problem, though, because right now what we see is we have, Lego plans that are the size of this room. You can create a battleship with a plan, and very, very small children at 3 years old can take a plan and create a robot and can create
but that shortcuts
amazing things.
Yeah, it shortcuts the creative
It
process.
shortcuts the creative. So I want to go back to this. It's like baking. When you learn to bake, there are some basic principles that you need to know to bake, which is why a plan for Legos is wonderful for a 3-year-old. You're going to learn some basic things. You're going to learn how a wheel works. If you put this together with that, you're going to be able to make this car roll. That is what the directions do. They teach you some basics. But then after they learn basics, I have a friend that's my favorite mom of 3 boys. She buys them all the wonderful Legos, and they build the ships and the robots and everything. The Ferris wheels, it's amazing what they can create. And every day, when they want to play Legos, once a day, for an hour and a half, because they play a lot of Legos, they do not get directions. They have to create something on their own. And if they choose not to, the next day, she will create time. They get the directions withheld for them for a certain amount of hours until they create on their own.
Wow.
And so what that is doing for those boys, their creations are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because she's saying, I'm not taking your Legos away.
Right.
I'm just saying you can't have the directions for an hour and a half. You have to do it on your own because you know how all these mechanics work. So just going back to how does this apply to conflict? How does it apply to conflict?
Are you asking me?
Well, it's just...
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I'll let you answer it. But I got something I want to say, but I
Please
think,
go for it.
Well, there's just a bigger thing just than even conflict here, but I'm just thinking overwhelmingly, and again, I'm going to sound like the old guy, back in my day.
Yeah.
But you got to have space for creativity. You got to have space for relationships. You have to have, I mean, this is, I always talk about it with the guys when we speak. I said, you can put together a simple message. It's, but to have that space to be creative in all of that.
Yes.
But yet the pace of life goes so fast, and
It
the
does.
demands. And so to have relational, creative time, I mean, just to be able to do artwork where you don't have to show anyone if it's bad, but you've gotten outside of the lines, and you just, all of that stuff is so good for our brain.
It is so
But we're
good.
very, concise in our culture now. We don't even have time for this kind of thing. So when we are able to have that creative time and all that, how does that help with conflict?
Well, first of all, I just want to speak to parents. If you're having an enormous amount of conflict, you need to look at your schedule.
Yeah.
And you know what? I really think that priorities are important. If you have enormous conflict, that might mean that you're not spending enough time for your children. You're not giving them space to just play. And you're not giving them space to talk to you about their play.
Right.
It's important for you to go out and ask them questions. And what that does is goes back to the crib. Is it better to just let them play with the electronic, or is it better for me to look at you in your face and say, you are crying right now. I am going to talk to you. I'm going to discuss with you what is going on in your life. Going back to play, when you have that contact when they're playing, tell me about what you're making. Tell me about what's going on. I want to know what you're thinking. One of the scriptures that comes to mind always for me is quick to hear and slow to speak. And I think parents need to remember this, is that your children have got a lot going on in their mind. They're learning at such a rapid pace, and they want to tell you what they're learning.
Yeah.
But when you are when you're slow to speak and you let them quickly speak to you, they're processing all that. But what is that doing? That's connecting a human with a child. That is connecting you. When children learn to connect with humans, when they go to school and they're having conflict with their teacher or their peers, what their brain has already been wired is human to human contact for any kind of resolution, whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah.
What we do is we talk about it. We talk about everything. That is what we do.
Yeah.
It's a conversation.
That's great.
It is amazing. And I think that, parents, it's super hopeful. If
It is. It is, because, I think the practical side of this is more relational time.
Yes.
More creative time.
Yes.
Less electronic time.
Less electronic time.
Oh,
I went to the market the other day, and there's 25 babies in the market sitting in the little chairs all strapped in, and out of the 25, probably 23 of them have their mom's cell phones.
Yeah.
It was a tragedy to me because I knew that moms were missing the opportunity to teach their children. Today we're having bananas and avocados and tomatoes, and this is what it looks like.
Right.
Touch it, feel it, smell it, taste it, whatever we're going to do. This is an amazing opportunity to teach your children, no matter what age, about what we eat. It's amazing. But they're watching, a video is what they're doing.
Yeah.
Then in the same day, I went to a drugstore, and there's a mom with a 2-year-old, and the kid is freaking out, crying, screaming, I am not going to another store. Obviously, it was her errand day.
Right.
And she was like, we are going in the store, and I promise we're going to be super fast in this store. And she could hardly get him in the cart. She's like, you're sitting in the cart. But what she said to him, she didn't hand him a cell phone. What she said was, we're going to go super fast. And she spun the cart around a bunch of time, and she said, we're going to go super, super fast.
That's great.
And the child immediately stopped crying and immediately was engaged with his mother. And she looked at him in the eyes and she said, I promise we're gonna go fast. And she started pushing this cart super fast and immediately had the attention of the 2-year-old. And immediately the 2-year-old stopped. So going back to screen time versus face-to-face time. When we go back to school and that child has learned, when I am so angry and so mad because I am so done with my day, the screen child or the FaceTime child, who is going to have a better successful experience in the classroom? Who's going to be having problems with their teacher and who is not going to be having problems with their teacher? It's going to be the child that had the face-to-face time. It's going to be the child whose mom said, you know what, we have to do it. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to do the very best I can to look at you in the eyes and make this a positive experience for you.
Wow. This is one of the best shows ever. And we're done. Oh, we're out of time. It just went blank. That was really good. I was thinking the one thing you could have, though, is an app. And it's a conflict app. And then you push the conflict app and it says, spend more time with your kid and less just to remind you of these
Yes.
things. More relational time, more creative time,
Yes.
more interaction.
More interaction. I want to also tell parents, if we have any time left, we have an amazing playground at Green Valley Church that is completely safe. If you need time with your children outside, we encourage you to come at any time and use our playground. It's completely free. Use it at your own will. There's picnic tables and toys out there, so please come. Help yourself just as if it was a park and spend time with your kids.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're amazing.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
Thank
Lanise
you.
Hargett, ladies and gentlemen. And again, if you parents need any more information or more tools, more information about classes and everything like that, and programs for our kids, just call Green Valley or go to our website. And so thanks for being with us. Thank you. You're
Thank
awesome.
you.
And we'll see you next time on The Basics of Life.